Hi, folks. Welcome back to another one of our resources in Emmanuel's Not Just Surviving, but Thriving at Home series. I'm Jennifer Connect, Vice President of Marketing and Sales with Emmanuel, and I could not be more thrilled than to have Cameo Rogers, Emmanuel's Life Enrichment Manager, back with us again today. Cameo, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited about this topic.
I know. So this is an area where you're deeply passionate. And folks, if you haven't, make sure you check back. We had a really great resource that Cameo and I did on brain games and ways in which you keep your brain healthy as we're hunkering down at home, some ideas there. Today, we're going to talk all about memory support and dementia. And Cameo, if you would, in a quick nutshell for us, would you share a little bit more about, your passion and how you came to be passionate about that, kind of your journey in the area of dementia memory support?
You bet. This is something that stems from both personal and professional background. So I'm a recreational therapist by trade and started my career working in inpatient psychiatric care. And I was always drawn to working with the patients who were older adults, often nursing home residents who had dementia and another psychiatric condition. And I love to be able to be there to support them and help them in their journey with Alzheimer's. I also have personal experience with Alzheimer's in my family and my great-grandmothers who I was very close to, and watching that as a young girl and not really understanding why they would do what they would do or say what they would say. And now having the opportunity as an adult to be involved in this field in Alzheimer's care and to be teaching an Alzheimer's curriculum from a national organization since 2011, I now know what I didn't know then. And so it's been a really full circle journey for me. I'm grateful for all of the mentoring that I have had in the field from experts at the national level. And I am just really passionate about the importance of caregivers understanding what their loved ones or those individuals that they are fortunate to provide care for, what they're going through.
We will jump to this here in a little while, but Emmanuel has a whole host of great support for folks that are needing some additional support in the memory support areas. We have several communities that offer memory support and specific memory support neighborhoods, which we'll get to here too in just a little while. But let's talk a little bit about spending time at home and maybe being concerned for a loved one who has dementia or is starting down the memory support journey and needing more memory support. This is an area where we all should be a little bit concerned, and probably, I'm sure you are, folks, if you're there and you have a loved one who's going through this journey themselves. But Emmanuel did a great deal of, public service announcements and a lot of great information sharing earlier this year, talking all about seniors being isolated and feelings of loneliness, and that obviously being magnified if you have any sorts of memory issues, specifically dementia. So what might be even more concerning to people who have loved ones out there who are experiencing memory loss or dementia? Cameo, share with us some of the ways that Emmanuel Communities is helping to support residents in our areas, but then also how can we support our loved ones who are out in the community at large who might have dementia or memory support issues?
So at Emmanuel, there's different ways that we are supporting individuals at different pathways in memory loss, but one of those would be as much social connection as we can provide from that safe distance. And so we have done a virtual connection drive where we're sharing messages. We have some fantastic pen pal, intergenerational pen pal relationships that have been created as a result of that work. And that goes into independent living, assisted living, and memory care and long-term care, all different levels of care on that. We have been working on window visits to provide opportunities for families to, at a safe distance, visit their loved one and connect with them. Virtual visits via Skype or FaceTime, Google Duo, Zoom, and we have been doing a lot of different variety of programming to engage residents' senses, to challenge them cognitively, to give them a creative outlet. There's been a lot of ways that we've been able to incorporate supports in place at Emmanuel. From a loved one's perspective, there's a lot going on right now, from whether or not you're with your loved one in their home or if you're concerned from a distance. Right now, one of the harder parts with everything that's going on right now is simply a change in routine and a change in access to people. And both of those things can definitely create enhanced symptoms of Alzheimer's. You'll see them magnified a little bit. So that confusion may be a little bit magnified. The repetitive statements or repetitive concerns of where do I need to be going now? What am I supposed to be doing now? I'm supposed to be picking this up. When are we going to go to the store? When are we going to go to the store? When are we going to go to the store? Those repetitive statements can definitely kick in, or that level of frustration may just be a little bit higher than normal. The energy level may be a little bit different right now because there's more downtime, so to speak, and less being able to get out and about and walk around in the community. People may be noticing sleep routines are a little bit disrupted. They may just have a little bit harder time navigating to and from different rooms in the house even, or you may be seeing increased incontinence or just difficulty in tracking medications. It all kind of stems to that change in that routine and not really understanding why things are changing and why I can't go where I want to go when I want to go there. So I know that loved ones are really concerned right now, and I think that what I'm seeing is that loved ones are doing a great job thinking about, how do I check in with my loved one who has some issues with their memory? How can I, provide access to technology if we have it? If I've already gifted them an iPad, are we using it to call back and forth? Am I just checking in on them on the phone? Is somebody stopping by outside to take a look and see how they're doing? Or have we checked in with the person's neighbors, and are we doing grocery drop-off? I've just seen a lot of creativity coming out of families and a lot of support that's been happening out there.
So Cameo, if you would boil it down, because I think this is probably a very big concern for folks that are living away from a loved one who might need a little bit of help, who maybe is starting to have some memory issues, or they suspect is starting to have some memory issues. What are some gentle ways that we can support from afar in folks that maybe are not well down the road, not with well-established dementia, but maybe are starting to have some issues? What can we do without being in front of them every day, and how can we give some of that consistency or some of that routine activity and help? I would call it spinning, and that's a layman's terms, but help some of that spinning where a loved one might just be focusing on the same thing over and over and over again, which creates anxiety.
Yeah, and it's tough when you are from afar to be able to know for sure, and I get that. And one of the things that I definitely encourage is to look at providing those access to materials. That's kind of a big thing. Have we sent, so to speak, a care package to our loved one that has some things that can keep them occupied, some simple puzzles that they can do that are 100 pieces or less, where the pieces are big enough that they can pick up and hold, or some simple adult coloring books and materials to color with, or some simple spelling or word puzzles that are at your loved one's ability level. Are we getting them healthy snacks, or making sure that they have access to groceries that will help promote them to be hydrated and have good nutrition? Those care packages can be very helpful to feel like you're having an impact, even if you can't be with the person, or to work with that person's neighbor if there's a trusted neighbor or friend who lives closer by who can help with some of those things. I think it's just important to tap into those resources where you can't control how people respond, but you can control, what support you provide.
The care package idea, that's a great idea. And then obviously using technology to connect. What about, it strikes me that, for a lot of us, our routines have been completely disrupted. And I know you mentioned consistency as something that's important for somebody who's having memory loss. Maybe you have some ideas, some tips that you could share with folks on how we could help create consistency or schedule, even if we're not right in front of them or right next to them.
That is hard, because if a person has been used to getting up and going to the grocery store or going to the gas station and getting a coffee, and that's their routine and they've done that their whole life. And then somebody else has come to pick them up and they've gone on a car ride. And I think that's where things get really, really difficult. And so it's about kind of creating that new routine. So it's how do you replace whatever that activity was with something else? And it's really a personalized answer, because some people respond better to certain things. Some people actually respond well to a written out schedule that says, good morning. I wish I could be with you. I'll check in with you this afternoon. Here's what you can do today. Some people respond well to that. Some people can't handle that level of reading and structure, and so may just need something very simple like a CD player that says play me. And it has their favorite music that they can play after they've had their coffee. So it depends on the person and how far down they are down the path, but maybe right now the biggest thing you can do is just have consistency to the time that you call every day. And so maybe you're trying to call in the morning after that person's coffee, and that's helping you to establish a sense of a check-in. And that becomes one thing that they can rely on every day.
That is super helpful. And in general, I would imagine that probably applies to all of us out there. I know that the consistency and having some sort of dependability, that's been helpful even for my parents who are just knowing that we're going to call and check in with them sometime on Saturday. That's a really good tip right there. So tell us a little bit, Cameo, if you would, the difference between what we would consider as a normal senior moment, or, hey, I've just, had a lapse in memory with just some sort of forgetfulness, and actual dementia. What are some of the memory loss signs that we should all look for in our loved ones or start to be concerned about? Like what would be the difference between just normal aging and something we would be concerned about?
Great question. So we all have, as we age, those little things where we have those forgetfulness moments.
I think I had them when I was young too. I'm just going to tell. I think just maybe my brain is working so fast it doesn't compute.
Well, actually, there's a lot of truth to that.
Okay, I'll take that.
So sometimes it's because we're tired, or sometimes it's because we're stressed, or sometimes we just have too much going on, and so some of those details can get lost. And that happens to all of us from time to time. There's times that I forget where my keys are, and so we learn that we have to retrace our steps, and we have to think back to where they were. Or for some of us who travel to bigger cities for conferences, we've learned that you have to take a picture of where you park in that huge garage. So you can remember where to get back to your car.
That's a good tip. I might have to start using that just in general. Usually I'm parking and not really thinking about it. I get out and then I'm like, oh, where did I park? Good tip.
We learn. And so, we all have those moments where we do things like that, or we can't remember the name of that restaurant that we went to, but we can generally describe where it was and what we ate and that we enjoyed it, but we can't remember the name. And then all of a sudden, an hour later, it just comes to us out of nowhere. So we have those things, and they tend to become more pronounced the older we are, and they become more pronounced when we're not coping as well with the day-to-day, if we're tired, stressed, too much going on. But none of those things that I've mentioned, and then this is a key distinction and something that my dear friend Erin Benito, who's a great dementia expert, really taught me well, is the key difference is this is not impacting daily life. I am not going to foreclose on my home because I forgot where my keys were one day. I'm not going to need daily assistance with how I care for myself because one day I forgot where I parked my car in a different city that I've never been to. Mm-hmm. It's when it's a cumulative thing. So it's when we have all of these things happening and it's impacting our daily life. And I really love, if people haven't been to the Alzheimer's Association website, which is alz.org, to see the section on their website that has 10 warning signs.
Mm-hmm.
That is a fantastic resource. And I'm not going to list them all right now, but there's a few that I just wanted to draw attention to. So when you have somebody who is really struggling in being able to complete familiar tasks. So this is somebody who has baked this recipe all their life. They've been a baker or a cook, and all of a sudden they just can't, they cannot track recipes anymore. They're forgetting to shut off the stove, or they're not managing ingredients, and the ingredients have turned sour. It's a cumulative thing. We're seeing multiple signs that this person is not sequencing things the right way. This person is no longer really able to make good decisions when it comes to their safety, when it comes to paying bills, when it comes to taking their medications the way that they're supposed to take their medications, when they're supposed to take their medications, with the amount that they're supposed to take. The person is getting lost. When they're on their regular walk in their neighborhood, or they're on their drive that they've always taken, and they're not able to track where they are and get back. It's taking them longer than it would normally take. And when you ask them, they have an excuse, but it's not really making sense for how long they were gone. The person who you're starting to see where they're making repetitive statements and telling you the same thing over and over again. And when they lose something like their keys, they don't have the ability to track back, to trace their steps back and figure it out. And there's maybe a change in their frustration level or their mood or their behavior. It's really when they have memory loss, and you see changes in two or more other areas of their brain, their thinking. Some of those symptoms I just described. But that resource, that 10 signs, is a really great thing for people to pull up and review if they're concerned about a loved one.
And Cameo, we'll be sure to link to that, folks. We'll be sure to link to that right here on this resource page. So you can find just a quick link back to the Alzheimer's Association, because I would agree that is a really good resource with the 10 signs. For folks who might identify and see that a loved one is having issues, having memory support challenges, and starts to feel concerned about them and concerned about their well-being. I mean, I think that's really what you were alluding to. When we start to have challenges, or when the memory starts to challenge us enough that we're starting to be a risk to our own personal well-being and maybe the well-being of those around us, then of course we very naturally start to think about what are the options that are available for us to help support our loved one. And one of those options is certainly retirement living, memory support. We have multiple different communities at Emmanuel, and this is something that you and I are both deeply passionate about. We have some beautiful communities at Emmanuel that do offer memory support, memory care neighborhoods that are designed in particular to be able to support folks like this. Would you share with us just a brief overview of that? But before you get to the actual communities that offer memory support at Emmanuel, share with us a little bit about, there might be some myths or some, we'll call them the white elephant in the room. There might be some things that we're all thinking as a loved one, oh, well, it could be like this if I move my mom or dad or my grandma or grandpa into a memory support neighborhood. Oh, I don't want it to be like this. I mean, when we move them into a neighborhood, and in particular at Emmanuel, I know because of all the great programming and the great resources and the training that you've brought to Emmanuel and helped us really kindle and bring to life, there can be some really great enrichment of life. And I'd love for you to share, how do you get over as an individual who's just started to think about needing memory support, but how do you get over that hurdle of understanding more about what great resources are there to help support your loved one in this chapter of their life, and how wonderful living in a community that's there to support you on this journey might be for you as well as your loved one?
That's a great question, because I know this is something that people really struggle with. I've been a facilitator in multiple support groups with families who have placed their loved ones in different levels of living. And there's something to be said. Families really struggle with a sense of guilt and of frustration with the situation and grief. And I think that it needs to be said that there is a grief that happens. And so people are just a little afraid of the unknown and what this looks like. And I would say that it's really because it's unknown that people are afraid. And what I would encourage people to do is talk to in our case, I can speak for Emmanuel, but in our case, I would encourage you guys to speak to someone who works in one of our communities that has memory care, and to come visit and to see what it's all about, and to talk to the employees that we have about their passion for this, because I can speak to this. They are passionate about serving the residents that they have, and knowing them and knowing their stories and what's important to them. And I think that it helps when you can get a feel for that and see it and know that you're not letting anybody down by that decision. It's making decisions that are the best thing for your loved one and your family at that time. And it's really hard for families to let go of that and to transition into another place. And it's hard for them, and I acknowledge that. So I think it's starting the conversation, and people are often afraid to have that first conversation. And I think we've even talked about that in Emmanuel a lot, is sometimes it's just starting the conversation, starting the dialogue, and it's not as scary as you think.
Really, really love that you shared that, because I would 100% concur with you. You know, we have all these really great folks that are called senior living counselors at Emmanuel, and their role is, and they literally have helped thousands of families through similar situations. Each individual has a very unique scenario, for sure, a unique story, but through similar situations on trying to evaluate what is the next best support for my loved one as they're in this chapter of their life, needing some additional help because of their memory. And you know, that's funny that you bring it up, that the fear of the unknown. It's so incredibly true. We in retirement living don't have, you know, it's not like walking into the hospital smelling place with the weird light green colored walls like it was maybe when we were younger, or when you were going to visit your grandmother. It's not your grandmother's nursing home that you're walking into when you walk into a retirement community. And in particular, Emmanuel, our campuses are literally like walking into a Ritz-Carlton or a beautiful, nice, welcoming community that's really there to surround you with a whole host of experts. And I think that's an interesting, I have an interesting parallel, and I'm not suggesting that it's exactly the same thing, but it's similar to you trying to find the best education for your child. You know, when you're considering education options, you want to take them to a school that has good reputation and knows a lot about, and has a lot of experts that have studied childhood development and the different ways that students learn, and really maximize and surround your child in particular with the perfect mix to help them really thrive in that journey of life. This is similar. It's different for sure, but it's similar in that you want to make sure that the fit that you find for your loved one, if you decide that you want to go down the route of a living community with memory care, with a memory care neighborhood, you want to go in, you want to feel it, you want to understand the professionals around it, you want to understand the programming and the depth of knowledge that they have there. And I can speak wholeheartedly, and especially because you're on the phone and have helped us put together a great deal of programming to help bolster and continue to support folks in our memory support areas. But we see a lot of really great life and in particular, funny because it parallels with this particular concept, not just surviving in our communities, but really truly thriving. We see a lot of great thriving going on when somebody moves into memory care.
I would agree with that. And I think part of what I see is because the way that the memory support households that we have are designed, it is that smaller, more intimate type environment where people can feel like they belong, and where they are not intimidated. There's not a fear that they have of what am I supposed to be doing now, and where should I go, and what do I do now, and what's next. And we have the people in place to support them on that journey and to help to cope with that and to set that structure and to put together life enriching opportunities. And I've really seen in so many cases where people, I guess this is the best way to say it, is they kind of come out of their shell a little bit. And people, who have maybe struggled with eating a healthy diet or have not really engaged in activities before, we really start to see them kind of engage more than they have, because they have that community around them to support them, the materials in front of them that they need, and they have peers to connect with.
I love that. And at the same time, a whole community to be able to wrap around and surround a family and a family members. I mean, these are all big decisions and lots of emotions tied up in them. But when you actually start to explore and you find the right fit and you find a place like Emmanuel in our memory support neighborhoods, I really feel strongly that you as an individual, the loved one, can thrive as much as our resident who's moving in. I think that's a really big benefit to what we offer. Well, share with us before we wrap up this particular resource, Cameo, maybe just summarize the top 2 takeaway tips on, if I'm starting to be concerned about my loved one having memory support issues, what are ways in which right now in this very moment I can help support them? And then maybe give us a couple of different ideas on, as we start to move out of the COVID-19 situation, ways in which I could additionally support them with a little bit more face-to-face contact.
So I would say the biggest thing right now is to understand that this is a tough time, and that you may see some increase in some of those symptoms, or that agitation, or that repetitiveness, and to do your very best to be patient with that, to understand why that could be happening. There's a lot of stress, a lot of unknown, change in routine that's contributing to that. It's not the loved one trying to be difficult or trying to cause stress for you. It's simply the way that they're coping with the difficulties that they're having in their thinking and their memory and their judgment, based off of the difficult situation that we all find ourselves in right now. So I would say the biggest thing is to kind of empathize with where they're at, and to look at maybe providing a little bit of familiarity in whether it's a regular phone call or comfort in a care package. So something that you can tangibly provide, and it will make you feel better, and it'll make your loved one feel appreciated. So I would say that would be the first thing. And then a second thing would be, as we transition and you're able to start visiting a little bit more and these restrictions and social distancing lift, one thing I would be encouraging family members to do right now is to be really thinking about your dementia communication skills. And this is a good time to be practicing those before you get in front of your loved one. So really trying, when the person goes down a path of repetitive questions or repetitive statements or gets frustrated, really trying to manage your own frustration, your body language, the tone of your voice, your facial expression, as you calmly respond back to what their concern was. One thing that I often tell staff members and employees that work with people with dementia in supporting them is that it's important to understand they wouldn't ask if they knew the answer to the question. They wouldn't say it if they knew they'd already told you. And they wouldn't do it if they knew that it bothered you and if they understood that it bothered you. But they can't control these things. It's their coping mechanism for the failure that's happening in their brain. And so the best thing we can all do is to be understanding, supportive, and try and center ourselves and be very present and listen and do our very best to understand that they're doing their best, and all we can do is support them and let them know that they're loved and appreciated for who they are.
Cameo, that was fantastic. We will include that for sure on the tip sheet, folks. I mean, super insightful and helps us, I think, maybe all take a pause. If we're in a moment of frustration, if we remember those things, they wouldn't ask if they knew the answer to the question. I mean, I think that's quite profound and a good reminder for us to help support our loved one, meet them wherever they are on their journey. And, sometimes they're not at the same place that they were 5 years ago on the journey. Well, with that, folks, we will be sure to link all these great tidbits that Cameos just shared with us. Those are going to be available for you in the tip sheet. And also, we brushed over the top that Emmanuel has a host of wonderful memory support neighborhoods inside of our communities. We'll make sure that we list those out and link those as well. So you can click through. If you want to get in touch with one of our senior living counselors, they're there to help support you. You may not find that Emmanuel's the right fit for you, but we're here to help seniors everywhere find the right next best fit in their journey, whether that's a loved one searching for your loved one, what might be the best memory support neighborhood for them to move into, or whether you're starting to consider retirement living. Emmanuel is here for you, not for profit. And by that, we mean seniors are the communities in which we serve, and of course, all of our employees and team members as well. Thank you again, Cameo, for coming on. We really appreciate the depth of information, and this was, in particular, a really great topic to explore with you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Folks, we'll be back again with another resource. Be sure to keep checking this particular web page and all the great resources we continue to add. We're adding several a week, so we hope that you find this enriching. If you have ideas for resources, don't hesitate to reach out to us on any of our social media channels, or just click the Contact Us button right here, and we'd be happy to answer a question for you. That's it for today. We'll be back again soon.